According to O'Connor, a grade within the GPA system is defined as a symbol, letter or number, on a report card that summarizes student achievement. The GPA system uses letters and numbers in order to communicate information about student achievement. But what information is being communicated?
What does it mean to receive an A-? I'm sure you could find an answer that goes something like, well, it means it wasn't quite perfect, but it was close. Excellent, but then how about this? Can you explain the difference between these two? I'm sure if you research this, you could find an old book that tells you a technical definition, but can any student give me that definition? How about parents right off the top of their head? If that's not ambiguous enough, let's talk about how grading these papers work without going standards-based. Let's say you take Teacher 1. This teacher might look over a student's essay and give it that wonderful grade of a B+. Why not an A-? Well, stop asking silly questions, it's just not as good as an A. However, Teacher B might give that same paper a C. Why? These are professionals grading students fairly. Why the big difference? The truth is because they were grading to specific things that just happened to be different from each other. Those teachers could defend that specific grade on their own criteria, even if it's the exact same paper.
The GPA system is used to sort students based on their academic achievement, utilize the bell curve, motivate students to exert more effort, prepare students for the next grade, highlight the high-achieving students, and to provide feedback. Research sociologist Robert A. Fieldmesser stated that the GPA system can translate students' knowledge and understanding of concepts. He claimed that grades inform students about how well they are doing in the class, and it encourages teachers to conduct some form of evaluation. Without the GPA system, students would not be motivated to succeed, and teachers would provide little feedback, if any. A student asked his Zen master how long would it take to reach enlightenment. 10 years, the master said. But the student was persistent. What if he studied very hard? Then 20 years, the master responded. Surprised, the student asked how long it would take if he worked very, very hard. In that case, 30 years, the master replied. His explanation: if you have one eye on how close you are achieving your goal, that leaves only one eye for your task. Most educators agree that the following grading practices should not be included because they prevent grading from being accurate measures of student performance. Grading for behavioral issues, using zeros as punishment, using a point system and averages, grading homework and other formative assessments, grading on a curve, and allowing extra credit.
When students get zeros for missing work, it is the academic death penalty. And I am more than willing, as a holder of an American passport, to stipulate that Canadian students are just plain better behaved than students from the lower 48. But can I just ask you, even among your best behaved students, have you ever seen one pick up a zero and say, a zero? I have now seen the light. I shall go forth and sin no more. A zero, I now. Why didn't it occur to me before? I realized the value of time management. Or, with that zero, is their motivation blown? Friends, your worst behavior and discipline problems in November and December are students who had accumulated so many zeros that their semester was over, and they were the ones in your office creating problems. If we want to make this better, we have to have a better solution for missing work that I will hear.
For grades to be effective, they need to be consistent, accurate, meaningful, and supportive of learning.
We have to get rid of the average. I've read the mathematics curriculum of this province. Keep me honest, who teaches fifth grade in this room? Fifth grade, men, your students learn the mean, the median, and the mode, correct? Because fifth graders in Ontario know that politicians can lie to you with an average. They can misuse statistics. Fifth graders know that the average is not always the best representation of a data set. And yet we let people with advanced degrees use the average all the time.
What studies find over and over again is the more you reward students for doing something, the more they tend to lose interest in whatever they have to do to get the reward. Are there some kids who are motivated by grades? Oh yes, and more's the pity. That's not a learning style to be accommodated. That's a problem to be solved. Because the more students are focused, for whatever reason, usually because of the way they've been socialized by schools and parents, the more they're motivated to get good grades, the more the depth of their thinking, the preference for challenge, and the interest in learning tend to suffer.
According to Cage, when Japanese students were told that a history test would count toward their final grade, they were less interested in the subject and less likely to tackle difficult questions than those who were told that the test was just for monitoring their progress. According to Butler and Nissan, Israeli educational psychologist Ruth Butler has repeatedly found that students perform less well and are less interested in what they are doing when being graded than when they are encouraged to focus on the task itself. According to Harder, children told that they would be graded on their solution of anagrams chose easier ones to work on and seemed to take less pleasure from solving them than children who were not graded. In order for grades to represent accurate and precise measurements of student achievement, there are certain elements that should not be included in grades. According to Data, Main, and Fulkerson, including classwork as part of the final grade can misrepresent the student's true level of content mastery. Students need time to practice and hone their skills. Students should not be penalized for making mistakes while they are trying to learn and understand the concepts. Classwork and homework are considered formative assessments, and they should guide teachers' planning and not be used in students' overall grades. According to Hanover research, some educators argue that grading homework motivates students to get it done. Some educators have found that replacing grades for homework completion with extensive and specific feedback leads to more accurate grades and does not cause completion rates to go down. This system does not give a clear representation of what the student has mastered. Percentages does not give teachers a precise or accurate measurement of student achievement. Percentage grades are calculated based on the amount of problems or questions a student answered correctly. Unfortunately, this information does not inform the teacher about what the student has mastered, nor does it identify any skills that are lacking. As described by Stiggins, the logic behind using effort as a grading criterion might be stated as students who try harder receive a higher grade than those who achieve at the same level but put less effort in their work. Thus, the level of effort that a student puts forward will also determine if a student receives a high or low grade. Example: if a student does not turn in his or her assignment on time, that is viewed as low effort. But what if the student didn't complete his or her assignment because they didn't understand it? Colleges use the GPA system, so it only makes sense if K through 12 use the GPA system as well. Students are being prepared for college. If we review the admission process at some of the elite schools, we see that SAT or ACT scores, an essay, an interview, and letters of recommendation are more significant. Letter grades play a small factor during the initiation process of getting into college. It is agreed by educators and administrators that grades are used mostly to provide feedback to students about their progress and achievement. In the GPA system, feedback is not effectively communicated. Feedback takes the form of a letter or a number, and this information does not communicate what a student knows or does not know. In an efficient grading system, grades communicate student achievement, which is not apparent in the GPA grading system.
Standards-based grading, or SBG, helps teachers do three things. 1. Learning goals. Standards-based grading helps us focus on the learning goals of our class. SBG is a grading system that focuses on the content, skills, or standards that students must learn. This means that when recording scores, the concern is not with a cumulative grade on a test, but rather the level of mastery the student has achieved on each concept assessed on that test. With that slight change, patterns begin to appear in the classroom as a whole and for individual students. The class may be struggling with a particular concept and may require the teacher to revise her instruction. or a student may show a pattern of weakness with a particular skill which can be individually addressed. 2. Assessments. Standards-based grading forces us to look at our curriculum and make sure that each activity, test, and project has a purpose. With a clear idea of each learning goal, we can be more intentional about what each activity is for. When creating tests, we know exactly which skills need to be assessed. Existing homework assignments or activities that don't aid or assess any learning goals are clearly not necessary. 3. Feedback. Standards-based grading helps us give better feedback to our students. Once the goals of the class are clear, we can be clear with students about how well they were mastering the content. We used to say you must earn an 82% on the final to pass. With SBG, we can say, you just need to focus on using clear evidence to support your claims. The focus is on skills instead of points.
Data, Main, and Ferguson state a key difference between traditional grading practices and standard-based grading practices is that standard-based grading communicates only content mastery. Standard-based grading does not include percentages, behavior, or norm referencing. According to researchers such as Brookhart, Guskey, and the Hanover Research, standards-based grading includes criterion reference-based grading, which is highly recommended by educators and researchers. Standard-based grading understands the idea that learning may take more than one attempt. Reeves state that when grading policies improve, morale and discipline will almost always follow. There are positive effects of implementing the standard-based grading system. When schools take a step to reduce failures, lots of good things happen. For example, a school implemented best practices and enrollment in advanced placement classes has increased. Discipline has increased. Tardiness has decreased, and teacher morale and the student climate has increased. A school's grading system can affect the overall culture and morale of the school. We know we've made a positive difference when a 7th grader makes the following comment about our grading practices. I find that I am more prepared for tests because I don't have to worry about getting a good grade. I have to worry about learning and understanding the material, and good grades will follow. Teacher comment, Kim Walter, a math teacher at Clifford Smart Middle School in Wally Lake. I feel like standard-based grading is helping me report an accurate picture of the student's understanding. When conferencing with kids and parents, I can say confidently that the students know a certain amount of the content, and I can also report what content the students mastered or did not master. Many parents and students have had a very negative reaction towards standard-based grading systems. Common complaints have been that standard-based grading generally reduces student grades and that it's hard to understand what grades mean under the new system. These reactions indicate that as good standard-based grading sounds in theory, it is still difficult both to implement such a system and to convince people of its worth. These difficulties can be alleviated by adopting some of the implementation strategies. Step 1. Create a sense of urgency. The cost of inconsistent grading practices should be identified. the school should come up with some solutions about how they can prevent failures by improving their grading practices. Step 2. Form a powerful coalition. It is likely that there is a teacher at the school who is implementing a standard-based grading system. These teachers should be included in the process and share their insight with others. Step 3. Create a vision for change. The faculty needs to determine who the audience is and how to effectively communicate to them. The school needs to get the facts and conduct research. The standard-based grading system should be based on evidence and not opinion. Step 4. Communicate the vision. Identify the purpose first before picking out the reporting format. Use these questions as a guide. What information do we want to communicate? Who is the primary audience for that information? How would we like that information to be used? Identifying the purpose will allow the report card to be more effective. Communicate with parents, students, and teachers. Parents, students, and teachers need to be informed about the changes that are taking place. They also need to be reassured that most things will not change. Step 5. Remove obstacles and empower people. Teachers should be empowered and made experts of the new grading policies. 3 key actions are recommended when implementing best grading practices. Separate behaviors from academics. Summative grades are determined by high-quality assessments and they are aligned to standards. And teachers should offer relearn and recovery opportunities which will allow students to demonstrate their knowledge over time. Step 6. Create short-term wins. Focus on demonstration of the learning and not task completion. Assignments should be challenging and not rigorous. How many times does a student need to prove that they understand something? Record formative assessments. This information will communicate how many students are ready for the summative test. It gives an overall measurement of how the class is doing. Step 7. Build on the change. Send out surveys about the standard-based grading system. What is working and what needs to be improved? How do students and parents like the new grading system? Step 8. Anchor the changes in the school culture. The progress of the new grading reform should be brought up at every meeting.